From the historic campus of Hillsdale College in Hillsdale, Michigan, where the good, the true, and the beautiful are taught, nurtured, and honored, this is the Radio Free Hillsdale Hour, bringing the activity and education of the college to listeners across the country.
This is your host, Scot Bertram, and welcome to a special year-end edition of the Radio Free Hillsdale Hour. Thanks so much for joining us. I am in studio today with Bill Gray. He's our Vice President for Institutional Advancement here at Hillsdale College. Yes, that's a title change from our last episode at the year end. We'll have more about that in a minute. Bill, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Scott. It's always good to be here. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you, to the audience. They're hearing this more than likely in between the two holidays,
That's
after
right.
Christmas, but pre-New Year's. And this is one of the rare times of the year when the college ramps down just a little bit. Students are done, our term has come to an end, and employees and teachers and everyone involved in making Hillsdale College go have the opportunity to spend time with family, acknowledge the blessings of the year, and have a great Christmas and a great New Year. So it's an odd part where if you walk through campus, you actually don't see a lot happening.
No, it's actually really cold this year, and so that's part of it too. We've had some beautiful weather. If you like winter and you like snow, it's beautiful.
I love winter and I love snow.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. We're actually getting ready to welcome our daughter home from her first semester at Hillsdale. So I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing what it was like for her. It's been a fantastic year here at the college. And we're also looking forward to a fun year ahead in 2025.
Yes, it is your first term as being the parent. You were a graduate, so a former student at Hillsdale, but your first time as the parent of a Hillsdale College student, a freshman. What kind of change is that for you?
Well, thanks for reminding me that, I'm old, Scott. That's helpful. I appreciate that very much. No, I really enjoyed the process of being a Hillsdale parent. I never would have thought all those years ago right? When I came to campus that I'd be having my daughter come here, that I'd be working here. And so really kind of touched all the bases of what it's like to go through a Hillsdale College educational experience. It's been a lot of fun. We had a chance to do Parents Weekend as parents, which was really interesting. It was like this giant, speed dating kind of a experience. Where
10 minutes each professor. That's all you get.
And then they ring a bell and you got to go on to the next one. So that was a lot of fun hearing how she was doing. And it's been great. It's been a great time for us.
We want to talk today a little bit about the Radio Free Hillsdale Hour, the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. I'll tell you the top 5 most downloaded shows of the year, which is always fun. But part of what we talk about today, too, is the opportunity for you, the listener, to help us at Hillsdale College and also us at the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. We'll talk more in depth about this in a bit. But if you go to hillsdale.edu/year-end, that's a place for people to help us support the college. Why is year end so important to this?
Well, at the year end is when we start to raise money for the plans and the things that we're going to be accomplishing in 2025. It's a time when a lot of folks are looking at that statement and figuring out what does their calendar year end giving look like. And so it's a good time to be reflective on the past, but also preparing for the future. And so we have hillsdale.edu/year-end to try to achieve a goal of raising $6 million before December 31st. I know that's a big goal, but I also know we have a lot of dedicated, loyal, and generous supporters. I think we can get there.
Hillsdale.edu/year-end is the website. We'll come back and talk more about that in just a couple of minutes. This year, Hillsdale College Podcast Network had another great year. We reached, I just looked up the numbers, 2.3 million downloads across the Hillsdale College Podcast Network.
Wow.
And relatively new this year, the YouTube outreach. All of our shows are now available on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and search, you'll find all of our programs. We've had more than 300,000 downloads just on YouTube alone.
Wow.
YouTube, as you and I know, is a place for people to discover shows and discover podcasts.
Right.
So it's important for our programs to be there. So when people are searching out Hillsdale College, Hillsdale College content, or just stumbling across it randomly,
right,
we're there for people to find us. So those numbers are fantastic. We see growth year over year. And, podcasts are big. That's what I hear.
Yeah.
Especially after the November election. And people, I think, are trying to find these unique and different sources of information and entertainment. And that's why we are in that sphere.
Right. That's right. Actually, YouTube, I think, is the number one place for podcasts, which is a little bit weird because podcasts are what you're listening to. YouTube is a place for videos, but it's such a powerful place to go find things. Like you said, discovery is so important. And so, yeah, we had to be there on YouTube. We had to have our podcasts be on YouTube. And some of our shows, like the Larry Arnn Show, you can watch Dr. Arnn and his guests talking. Some of them, it's just an audio file with a waveform, and you can listen. And if you're like, people that I love in my life that listen to podcasts on YouTube, they turn it on, they put the phone down on the counter, and they go on with cooking, doing dishes or whatever, and listening in. It's been a great year in the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. I know there's a lot of exciting things happening for 2025 as well.
Yeah. I want to ask you, though, because you've moved positions here inside the college since last year to Vice President for Institutional Advancement. As Vice President of Marketing, you were involved in the creation and launch of the network. And now you have, I would say, additional contact with people who are taking part in listening to shows.
That's right.
What do you hear from people, and how does the podcast network help Hillsdale's mission?
Well, the college's mission is I like to boil it down because I'm a marketing guy at heart. I boil it down into two things, to reach and to teach. And we try to do that for anyone that wants to learn from the college. So Hillsdale College is a college. We have classes, we have professors, we have classrooms and buildings, and anyone that wants to, that's listening to this show, you are more than welcome to come and visit and see the college in action. This is not the greatest time to visit because, as Scott, you mentioned, there's not a lot of activity, but come and visit. It's a great thing. The activity that happens there then radiates out all throughout the country. The learning, the teaching, everything that happens, we try to extend that out. And so the podcast network is a great way for people to learn from the college by listening to it on a podcast. It's one of the most popular and continues to be a growing way that people learn. And so if people are learning, Hillsdale College needs to be there. And so that's why the podcast network is so important to the mission of the college, to the outreach of the college.
And your help, listeners' help, is important. Podcast discovery is a tricky thing.
It really is.
And so word of mouth and sharing shows and telling people about things you like is one of the best ways for shows to find new audience members and have them come back again and again and again.
That's right. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've recommended a Hillsdale College podcast network show. If you're talking to a friend, talking to even an acquaintance and say, hey, you're interested in a topic, we have podcasts for just a variety of different topics that people might find interesting. If they're interested in current events and politics, the Larry Arnn Show is great, or the Hillsdale Dialogues, or the Radio Free Hillsdale Hour. But if they're interested in more timeless topics, our Online Courses podcast is a great way to learn about ancient Christianity or about the Constitution. And they have new episodes coming out every week on that show, which are just really excellent.
Yeah, let's talk about a few of those shows.
Sure.
So
yeah,
people who are listening right now obviously know about the Radio Free Hillsdale Hour. You're listening to it. It's a great show. You listen every week.
Yes, we do.
The Hillsdale College Podcast Network hosts a number of shows. One of those is the Online Courses podcast. So this is the most requested show that we have had on the network, which is people say, I love the online courses, but I can't always sit in front of a monitor. I can't always watch. I'm on the go. I'm in the car. I'm traveling across the country.
Yes.
Can you make it easier for me to listen and learn through online courses? The answer is yes. And so we've turned it into the Online Courses podcast.
That's right. And actually, the thing I hear from most people when I talk about the online courses for Hillsdale is, I signed up for that course. I'm going to start it. I know it's really important, and I'm going to go and take that course on the Constitution or on Genesis or on C.S. Lewis. And so, as you were saying, Scott, this is a great way to get started with the course. It's not the same as sitting down, getting your notepad out and watching and being taught by one of our professors. It's probably the next best thing, though. It's a lot more convenient, though, from the standpoint of being able to listen in the car while doing chores. And I've had people that will say, whenever we take a road trip with our kids, we have the podcast up and we listen for an hour. It makes the time go by quickly, and you learn something along the way. It's a great show hosted by Dr. Jeremiah Regan and Juan Davalos. They give a little bit of an intro into the subject, and then they dive right in and introduce the professor. And it's a great way for folks to learn from the college in a really convenient way.
You can find that at podcast.hillsdale.edu or anywhere you find your audio.
That's right.
If you want more from our president, Dr. Larry Arnn, there are 3 different ways to get more Dr. Larry Arnn in your life.
That's right.
One is brand new. There are only 3 or 4 episodes, depending when you hear this
That's right.
episode, of Liberty and Learning with Mark Levin and Larry Arnn, 2 guys who have been friends for an awfully long time and 2 of the smartest guys I know anywhere talking about topics that affect all Americans.
That's right. We're really excited about this new collaboration, this new partnership with Dr. Arnn and Mark Levin and Westwood One. And so Liberty and Learning with Mark Levin and Larry Arnn, I call it Liberty and Learning with Levin and Larry, but that name
But then again, you're a fan of alliteration. So.
I love alliteration. It's one of my favorite things. But yeah, Dr. Arnn and Mark Levin get together and they talk about topics of enduring relevance. They start out by talking about a little bit about the elections and what happened and the opportunity that we have. And then they dive into kind of the deeper meaning behind the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And it's a lively dialogue. It lasts for about half an hour or so, and it comes out every week. We're doing this as a test. We'll see what people think about it, but I'm really encouraged by how it's doing so far. And I know that Dr. Arnn and Mark love getting together and talking. It's really neat to hear the relationship between those 2 guys.
We talked a little about the Larry Arnn Show, which is a show hosted by Dr. Arnn as he talks to people that he finds interesting, that he wants to ask questions to. So that means they are tremendous people as well. These are great conversations, and Dr. Arnn is a great interviewer as he asks questions that not only listeners want to know, but he wants to know as well.
Yeah, it's actually the neat thing about that show is that you get to hear Dr. Arnn not just being a teacher, but also being a student and learning about artificial intelligence or learning about writing fiction with Dean Koontz. The conversations that take place on that show are deep, meaningful. It's like getting to listen in on a conversation between 2 really smart people who like each other a lot. And the topics are always interesting. One of my favorite episodes of that one was Dr. Arnn and Bishop Julian Dobbs, and hearing them talk about faith and talk about, the role of faith in the founding of our country. I think that's a great episode to listen to right now, even between Christmas and New Year's. It'd be something that your listeners might enjoy.
And the final way to hear more Dr. Arnn is through Hillsdale Dialogues. Dr. Arnn talks with Hugh Hewitt each and every week. Great ideas, great books, great men. This is 10 plus years of conversations and a new one every week available on the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. You can binge listen for weeks, perhaps at a time.
Yeah, that's a really fun show. I've been around the college as an employee for about 11, 12 years now. And I was here when that show started. And it's been really cool to see how that thing has evolved. And Dr. Arnn gets people at receptions and other places coming up to him and talking about how much they love that show. He and Hugh and Dr. Arnn talk sometimes about current events for a little bit. And then they'll dive into Churchill, great ideas, great books. Sometimes there's a guest or 2 that will come on. And one of the fun things to do is to go back and listen to some of those series because they'll really explore a topic in depth. And Hugh is such a great interviewer. He's very curious. He asks great questions of Dr. Arnn. And also the warmth of the relationship between the 2 of them is really it's just fun. It's just a fun listen. And so it's worth binging. So yeah, do you have a favorite one of those 3 Dr. Arnn shows? I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Favorite one? It's probably the Larry Arnn Show, because I was not a student here at Hillsdale. And so I didn't have the experience of having Dr. Arnn as a literal teacher in the classroom or even having him talk to me in the cafeteria at some point. This gives me a little bit of insight about what it's like to be in an academic situation with Dr. Arnn. And again, he helps to book the show, right? He's identifying guests that he wants to talk to, subject areas or guests that he finds interesting, and then how he thinks about those things. It's incredibly interesting. And I'm there as they're being recorded, as they're being taped. And so I see that happen in real time. I very much enjoy the Larry Arnn Show.
That's great. That's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Two other shows very quickly.
Yeah.
Imprimis is also available.
That's right.
Which is, we have one of our current students read the current issue of Imprimis. And also we have some Imprimis archive editions, archive issues that go up. So again, take it on the road with you. Listen as you're driving, listen as you're commuting. You can do that with the current issues of Imprimis and some of the back issues as well. And then the K-12 Classical Education Podcast, which talks a lot about K-12 classical education.
It's a very creative name.
I know.
It's great.
But we have parents of current classical education students that listen in. We have teachers and administrators at classical schools. And then we have what we call, curious parents, curious teachers who just want to know more about what is happening in K-12 education.
Classical curious.
Classical curious, yes. So there's all sorts of people who
great.
tune into the K-12 Classical Education Podcast. These are all great shows.
Yeah.
Hillsdale College Podcast Network has been now on its feet for more than 2 years.
That's right.
If you and I can believe it.
Yeah. One of the interesting things, so that rundown of different shows, the K-12 Classical Ed Podcast, the Larry Yarn Show, Imprimis, online learning, these are all ways that the college is reaching out and teaching people at scale. And so it's interesting to see, like, we take an online course and we turn it into a podcast, and it's a way to reach more people, to teach more people. And the thought is that, if you find us on YouTube, or if you find us in, wherever you're listening to your podcast, you start listening to one of the shows. The reason we talk about it as a network is because we have opportunities in the network to introduce other shows to people, other topics that they might find interesting. And it gives them kind of the entry into the Hillsdale universe. And there's just a great variety of subjects and shows and things to learn. And learning something is one of the most exciting things that you can do in life. And so the Podcast Network is a great way to do that.
We talked earlier about hillsdale.edu/yearend, our efforts at the end of the year that allows supporters to both help us here at Hillsdale College and also help to sustain the Podcast Network well. Because, as you like to say, what's your line? It's free for the listener. Doesn't mean it's free to create.
That's exactly right. No, the work that we do with all of this outreach, we do, as you mentioned, we make it available for folks for free. We want anyone who wants to learn from Hillsdale College to be able to learn. And to do that, though, we have to invest. We have to invest in equipment. We have to invest in advertising so that people can find us. We have to print and mail 6.6 million copies of print Imprimis every single month, or 10 times per year. So that stuff takes resources. And so one of the things that we have at Hillsdale is also an independent stance. Unlike so many other colleges that take money from the government for student loans or even directly, we refuse all of it because we want to make sure that we are independent and able to teach without compromise. And so because we take no federal funding of any kind, even that indirect funding that I mentioned, we rely on the generous, faithful support of people who learn from the college to make all of this outreach possible. And so here at the end of the year, when folks are making their year-end giving plans, I just hope that people will give us some consideration into that. And if they feel moved to give, and the best way to do that is for someone to go online at hillsdale.edu/yearend, and they can make a gift right on our secure donation site.
You're a Hillsdale donor, and I'm a Hillsdale donor in addition to working for Hillsdale.
That's right.
And I'll speak for myself. It feels good. It feels good to know that you're supporting a place that does what Hillsdale does, and also that you can trust Hillsdale to continue its mission, which has been the mission since 1844.
That's right. We've been doing this for over 180 years. And, my boss, John Cervini, he's the executive vice president of institutional advancement. He's been here for 50 years, and he has been able to help see the college, fundraise for the college, to continue to watch it grow and expand its outreach and its influence. And the hope is that we're going to be here for another 180, 360, however many years it takes, teaching people, teaching the next generation of leaders, and also reaching out and teaching anyone that wants to learn from us. But to do that, we need the help of anyone that's listening to this podcast to go online and make a tax-deductible gift to the college before December 31st.
Hillsdale.edu/yearend. Hillsdale.edu/yearend is the way to do that. Two more things we want to take care of as we talk today.
Absolutely.
One is at the end of the year, I always run down the 5 most downloaded shows of the year for the Radio Free Hillsdale Hour.
I love lists. I can't wait. You haven't told me what these 5 are, so
Yes.
I'm finding out at the same time as our listeners are finding out. So lay it on me. What were the top 5 shows from 5 to 1?
So the 5th most downloaded show of the year featured Joel Pollack from Breitbart.
Oh,
And also author of the new book about Trump's first 100 days, which he wrote months before the election.
right.
And now is actually a really good handbook, perhaps,
That's
for people.
wonderful.
So that was number 5. Number 4 was on the American housing crisis. So that was James Berling, his new book, or recent book, Nowhere to Live, on the American housing crisis. And Richard Samuelson from Hillsdale in D.C., also on that show, talking about the 250th anniversary of the Second Continental Congress. Number 3 on the list features 2 heavy hitters, Molly Hemingway
she's
and
great.
Miranda Devine.
Oh my gosh. No wonder that one's so high up there.
So Molly talking about election integrity and the media, Miranda Devine talking about her recent book about the Biden family and Hunter. So that was a very popular show.
Yeah, I can imagine people were very curious about the content of that show.
Number 2, Victor Davis Hanson, warning of cultural collapse.
Victor Davis Hanson is number 2. Now that's
Number
shocking
2.
to me. Now, he's normally our most popular guest by far.
He is. Victor Davis Hanson always does very well. He's very popular with the audience, which is why he's also number 1.
Oh, okay.
Victor Davis Hanson
Shocker.
decoding the Harris campaign about a month or 2 before the election.
Oh,
Also, Teddy Troy with his great book, The Power and the Money. He was on that program too. That one actually was by far the most downloaded show of the year. Victor Davis Hanson talking about the Harris campaign.
well, talk about a timely topic and about a great and fascinating guest. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the Radio Free Hillsdale Hour does so well is you're able to book some great guests that come. Sometimes they're coming to speak at the college and talk to our students and some folks that we invite to campus. And then they have the chance to sit down with you and you get to have a little bit more time with them and get their thoughts. And I love hearing from Victor Davis Hanson. He's always got very interesting things to say and a great perspective on things. So not a shocker that he's both number 1 and
number 2.
Yeah.
Final question.
Yes.
What are you most excited about for Hillsdale College in the year to come, 2025?
We've got so much exciting things happening here at the college. You know, you mentioned that this is a quiet time. I kind of think about it as like a pause and taking a breath and then diving in. So 2025 is going to be a fantastic year for the college. We've got a lot of great new online courses coming out in 2025, and I won't spoil any thunder on that one, but there's going to be some great courses, and you guys are going to love those. We're going to be doing events on the road in Arizona and in Kansas City, and those are great times for Hillsdale fans and those communities to gather to hear from some great speakers.
That Arizona lineup is crazy.
Oh my gosh. It's going to be a barn burner. It's going to be so fun. I'm going to be out there. There's going to be other folks out there as well from the college. Dr. Arn's going to be there and will speak. But that's going to be a great event. I'm looking forward to hearing the speakers that are at that one. And then, we are going to be doing a lot of work, and we're thinking about how do we get Hillsdale College out into the country in a physical way. And so in 2025, we're really starting to think about that. I won't call it a problem. That's that strategic objective. How do we get Hillsdale to be physically in a place? What does that look like? And how do we extend the mission, not just through podcasts, which is great, or online courses, or mailing things to people, but actually have a place where Hillsdale people can visit. You know, we have a physical campus in Washington, D.C. at the Kirby Center. We have another campus in Somerset, Connecticut, the Blake Center for Faith and Freedom. How can we have more of those so that folks that want to learn from us, that want to gather, can do that together? That's something we're going to be exploring in 2025.
You can assist in making that happen and making 2025 a great year for Hillsdale College at hillsdale.edu/yearend. That's hillsdale.edu/yearend.
That's great.
Bill Gray, Vice President for Institutional Advancement here at Hillsdale College. Thank you for joining us on the program. Merry Christmas to you and the family. Happy New Year. And yes, 2025 is going to be fantastic.
Thank you so much, Scott, for having me on. And everyone that's listening to this, thank you as well for your support of the college, for your prayers, and for all that you do for liberty. We really, really do appreciate it. We feel your prayers, and we are thankful and grateful for your support. And I'm grateful for you, Scott. Have a wonderful new year.
Thank you, Bill. People can find more at the Hillsdale College Podcast Network, podcast.hillsdale.edu. Until next week, I'm Scot Bertram, and this has been the Radio Free Hillsdale Hour.